Alright people, a bit of narration on this video. Don't normally do that, but I don't normally race either. And this is the LA Tourist Race, Great Descent. 77k, 10,000 feet, or 3 kilometers of descending. But it wouldn't be a LA Tourist Race without some climbing thrown in there, so we've got 1,600 meters, about 5,000 feet in this one. This starts up at a high point of about 1,800 meters in the Angeles National Forest, and it ends in Burbank at Let's Ride Cyclery, and that is who puts on the race. Alright, let me quickly go over my gear before we get into the action. So yeah, the whole thing filmed on Insta360 Ace Pro 2 on the chest cam. I thought about taking it off now and then and get some side-on shots and stuff, but man, we were cooking the whole day, so. I was racing on the trusty Scott Spark RC. This is my XC bike, 120 mil travel, front and rear. I had 2.4 tires on, a Maxxis Recon on the back, and a Dissector on the front. Syncros Silverton 1.0 wheels. I normally have slightly lighter tires and wheels on here, but I was a little worried about the terrain, so I chunked it up a little bit. And you can see that tape on the top tube. That is an inner tube with some gaffer tape on the top. Quick hack job at protecting the top tube in case I put the bike down and the bars came around and slapped it with the lever. And yeah, I had that helmet there is a Casper Tony Sahara. I like that one, matched my top. Alright, so up here at the start of the race, how this works is every 5 minutes they let 5 riders off. I think we had about 65 riders in total signed up. You had to cap it because this is public trails and we didn't want to cause complete chaos. So I was in the 8:15 slot, that was the 3rd slot. And I thought I would get a whole shot here, but I don't know who this is, but he thought he was the fastest guy in the group, I guess. Let it roll for a bit. See how things are going. You can't judge a book by its cover, although I could have for this one. It didn't take too long till I had to pass this guy, but he was super friendly about it and let us pop through. Looking to go a little faster if you got space. Here my brakes are not sounding super hot either. I was up really late the night before getting this bike together. I only found out about the race at 8 p.m. the night before. I saw Hearn's story on his Instagram saying his bike's ready to go. I said, oh damn, the tourist race, Great Descent is on. I always wanted to do this. So I hit him up. He said he'll try to get me an entry spot. Luckily someone had pulled out, so I was good to go. The problem was I had to be at Let's Ride Cyclery at about 4:45 in the morning, I think it was, at the latest. So yeah, quickly ran to the bike, sorted out. Thought I just had to do a quick clean and double check everything. Turns out I was up till midnight sorting out the brakes and then also the dropper post. I was going to add air to it. Turns out this dropper doesn't take air, and I pretty much disassembled it by accident. I managed to get it back together just in time. But yeah, the brakes really glazed over pads. Had to sand them down twice. Anyway, they're working kind of good enough. I knew they'd get better as the day went on. So yeah, this race, a lot of descending, but pretty gnarly terrain too. And the whole point of this is also having to navigate. Now, oftentimes in these LA tourist races, they're kind of checkpoint races. You have to find a bunch of different spots along the way. This race is different in that you just go start to finish along a set route, but you still have to navigate because there's options. Like here, I realized right away I went the wrong way, but I had this guy on my tail and I was happy to let him go through because I had him up at the start of the race in our group. And I said, look at this guy, he's about the only guy here in full lycra. That's a good sign to me. This guy's here to race, he's confident. And yeah, he was absolutely flying. Now I ended up racing with this guy pretty much all the way to the finish line. All day together. His name is Brian as well, Brian Provost. And he's going pretty hard here, and I was like, is he trying to drop me? Kind of looks like it, but maybe he's just going this pace all day. And I told myself, like, let's not push too hard in the beginning. This is going to be like a 4 or 5 hour race. Let's build into this. I kept telling myself to build, but then when someone comes by, I mean, if you're just going to let him go, then your race is already over, so someone's beating you. So I said I'll stick with this guy and see what happens. And he seemed to know what he was doing and where he was going. And you can see right away that this is right out the gate. We've already done a few little climbs, done some technical descents. It's rocky, it's sandy. So right away I knew this was not going to be an easy one. This was going to take a toll. And Brian is pushing pretty hard on the climbs. There's no way I would be going that hard on my own. I was going to take it a little easier and work my way into this race, but I thought, let's just go, let's see what happens here. I just wanted to get to the highway, the 2, which was probably the only place you really get a decent draft on this whole race, and I thought if I could stick to his wheel till then, then I'd actually get a proper draft on the highway, which is about a 5-mile segment into the first aid station. So yeah, I was a bit out of my comfort zone here, but it's another reason why you race, is because you do go harder than you would on your own. And yeah, the terrain pretty gnarly already. And biggest concern was obviously you don't want to wreck, but also just ripping up a tire on some of these rocks that come up. Luckily I did put on that extra chunk of tire. Don't know if I'd do it again. It's a bit of a weight penalty, and this is definitely a race where you want it to be keeping it light and also keeping it quick, because not all of it was that technical.
Oh!
This trail we're on is called the Silver Moccasin Trail. It's pretty high up there in the Angeles National Forest, way north of Los Angeles downtown. And I've always wanted to ride this trail. I've had it on my map starred for ages, but never managed to make the trip up there. So that was another reason why I really wanted to do this race. There was so many miles of trails. Pretty much the whole thing was all new to me.
Thank you.
And I didn't know anything about these trails. Hearn kind of told me you might be a little underbiked on the XC bike, but it's definitely the way to go. Don't think I was really underbiked anywhere, but this trail right away, it was rough. There was all these little step downs and then rocks, and I am not in good shape for mountain biking. I hadn't ridden since Sea Otter, which was 2 months before this. I'd only done road riding, so upper body's never really in much shape, but definitely feeling it on all these little drops. And I was starting to worry early on. I was like, if this is gonna be how it is all day, I am gonna absolutely crack, because I'm getting beat up already, and we're 15 minutes into this race.
Thank you.
And then I just wanted to show you this section here. So we turn onto the road, and then I would have to slow down, look at my map, find out where this next trail is, and then double check that I'm on the right trail. But because I'm behind Brian, he just knew exactly where I was. I think he's done this race before last year, but he's also very familiar with these trails. So to be behind him and just be able to follow, yeah, it's a huge time saver. That might have only taken me an extra 10 seconds. It could take me an extra 30 if I missed that trail and had to double back. But all these little bits of time, they add up over a whole day. Plus you're riding a little bit slower at these sections, trying to think, trying to look at your computer, trying to look where the trails are. That was kind of the first section there where it chilled out a little bit, that climb. And you have a little time to think, because you're not having rocks fly past you at 30 miles an hour, So that was the first time I got to think like, okay, what am I really trying to do here? Do I want to stick with this pace? And we also got to chat a little bit. There was some fire road climbs. I didn't film all the climbing. I didn't film most of it because it's kind of boring compared to the ascending on this route. But yeah, I got to know his name and we chatted a little bit. So I got to know that he had done this. He knew where he was going. And you could just tell he'd been riding in the area for a long time. He knew about all the local plants, what not to get hit by, to get a reaction on your skin. And I made the decision then, like, yeah, I'm gonna go beyond my comfort level on the climbs. So off there in the distance on that ridge, you can see kind of a road cut into it. That is Highway 2 we're trying to get to, and that's like how I broke the race down. I said, let me just get to that point with Brian, hopefully get some draft and on that section on the tarmac. So you can see where it is. It's kind of cool. You knew it was there, but I also knew we were dropping down and we're going to have to climb up that side to get to the highway.
Oh shit, that wasn't good. Gotta get my pedals back. Oh fuck. Sometimes it's better to be leading the way. I'll catch up anyway, it's just instead of trying to conserve energy.
Yeah, so a lot of hairpins on this trail, and Brian being a taller guy, I think he's like 6'3", 6'4", he towers over me, I'm 6'1". You know, it's hard in the tight corners when you're that tall, higher center of gravity. Plus you got a big bike, which has got a longer wheelbase, and these trails, they're definitely not designed for bikes. They're mixed use, a lot of fun to ride, but you know, there's no berms, there's no wider hairpins. Basically hiking trails that are fun to ride, so not easy to get around the corners. Plus, this trail's pretty out there, you know. You couldn't just ride your bike up from town for a quick spin. This is like a proper trip you've got to plan. So, you know, it's nothing that Brian's gonna ride every day, although he has ridden this before. You don't remember every corner, so I like having him in front, but of course, at certain times there's an overlap and the braking doesn't work out as well as you want it. Wasn't really bothered by that, just knew I'd catch up.
So make sure you don't have a crash this early in the race. So. Awkward hairpins. These are all legal trails, but they're definitely more designed for hiking. A very different technique here to Brian in front of me. I'm sitting down almost all the way on these descents, saving my legs, because I don't have a lot of endurance in me right now. It's really nice to ride with him. He's riding a perfect pace for me at the moment, keeping me sensible on the descents and helping me on the climbs and flats. Got really lucky here with linking up with him.
With the dropper post, I don't think Brian used it at all this entire day, which was a massive contrast, is what I was saying there in my style. He has a dropper post on the bike, but I didn't see him use it once. I actually don't think it was connected. I kind of asked him about it, and he didn't he didn't really give me an answer. He just said, I'm old school, I don't need it, which is weird because you have it.
Phew! This is a real nice section. I'm just talking to my camera and waffling on.
I thought you were on the phone.
Yeah, just having a business meeting. This is an awesome section.
Great stretch, yeah.
Yeah. Finally got rid of all the rocks. Just get to rest the arms. I got arm pump early on here, so it's gonna be a long day for me. Burner! Oh. Ah. Holy shit!
I also noticed his rear shock lockout was manual, so he would flick that over manually. Didn't use that as much as I did either. But the biggest contrast would be me using the dropper all day,
Real deep here.
sitting down on all this descending. Like, for sure, more than half the race, dropper was down, and I was sitting on the saddle. I like to descend that way. It saves the legs massively.
Oh, wow. Really lost the front wheel there.
Obviously, it didn't slow down Brian too much because he was on the gas all day. But that was a big difference in the way we rode this course. And I think it made a difference for me because I only barely beat him in the end, and I started cramping in the last mile. So if I had been standing all day, there's no way I would have been able to do what I did. He probably would have dropped me like an hour from the finish. Alright, here we are on one of the many climbs of the day. This one was my least favorite part of the whole course. Nothing particularly wrong with it besides it was really, really hard. This was only short, it was like 1.2 kilometers. It was 12%,
Oh, nice
really
work, man.
tight switchbacks. We had to get
That
off a
was
couple
brutal.
times. Luckily they did some trail maintenance in some sections, so that made it easier, but it was still absolutely brutal. You can hear we're both totally spent at the top of this. I think we got a top 3 time on that on Strava, and the whole section up until this race, even the descents, we were getting like top 5 times all the way. So it wasn't just us compared to our competitors on the day, it was in general we were absolutely hammering. And that kind of continued throughout the whole race. We were just pushing pretty hard. Yeah, so here's the tarmac section, Highway 2. This was about 8 kilometers, 5 and a bit miles. There was about the same amount of climbing and descending. I tried to give Brian some draft on this section. Got in the tuck position, kept pedaling it. And here we are approaching the first of 2 checkpoints. These weren't like anywhere you had to stamp a card or something. You just
Checkpoints back there if
had
you
some
want
neutral
water.
aid if you wanted it. Brian there was going for the regular faucet that most cyclists know about, and then I saw there's a bit of a wait for that.
You guys got water here? Got water?
Water, yeah. You want hibiscus water?
Thank you. No, just regular.
Regular? You also have margarita.
Yep, leave it open. I spirit this in.
Hey. Any snacks?
I got you.
Yeah, buddy. Have fun.
Thank you. Fucking brakes are faded.
My brakes, I don't know what happened. They got way worse. I think I might have spilled some of the water on them or something. Said they were faded. They weren't faded. They just didn't work going into that corner, and they were still making noise. I think by the end of this Gabrielino Trail section, they were doing a lot better. So yeah, this is the Gabrielino Trail. It's a pretty iconic trail in Los Angeles. It's a big semicircle that goes for about 45 kilometers, 28 miles. It runs from Arcadia, does this big loop behind Mount Wilson, and then pops out in Altadena. So we're joining it here about halfway at Red Box, which is at the base of the Mount Wilson Road. And we're going down towards Altadena, so 20 kilometers, average of 5%. A lot of single track, and then some wider track down by the river. Yeah, so it's a bit steeper early on, and then flattens out as you get lower down. So this top section way steeper, and then it's like 2-3% towards the end. I'll just talk about my nutrition there. Since we went past that aid station, I threw a gel into the bottle. I had about 4 gels on me. I started with 2 bottles and a hydration backpack. The bottles are about 500 ml each. Hydration backpack had about 1.5 liters of just plain water. The bottles I had drink mix in, the carbs fuel, so 75 grams in each one. And then I had the gel, so all in all, for this day I had about 300 grams of carbs, which isn't that much. It's pretty low actually for a 4-hour day, but you gotta think I'm not smashing pedals all day. I'm doing a lot of descending, which takes its toll, but it's not the same as, you know, a road race or something where you're just pedaling hard all day. I kind of timed it perfectly by chance.
Oh my God.
I filled up a bottle there with the gel in it, and then I filled up another bottle at the next aid station way closer to the end, put a gel in that, and I ended up running out of water right, on the last descent. It's also this trail, I say it here and there like, oh, this is so nice, it's smoothed out. But then suddenly there'd be a gnarly section and a rock garden, and it'd be 20%, and it'd be really sketchy. So there's never a time where you could just switch off and chill out. There's always pay attention.
Is that dropper post just for show?
But yeah, you have to kind of weigh this. You're racing, you want to go fast, but also crash here, hurt yourself. What are you going to do? Car can't get to you. Helicopter or walk out. Same as a puncture, rip a sidewall that you can't repair. You're walking out of there. So it's a tricky one. These are the kind of gambles you have to go over in your head during the race. This is why I was, again, stoked to be with Brian. He was keeping me in check while going pretty damn hard.
Oh! Got that on video. Yeah, I did. Tripod it. That was gnarly.
Alright, so pretty different looking section of the Gabrielino Trail. We're here down at the Switzer Falls area, and this is really popular with hikers and just people coming out for barbecue on the weekends. So you can see Brian knocks the pace off quite a lot. We did this whenever people were around. We were racing, but everybody else was just out having a nice Saturday with the family. So obviously you can't impose yourself. Just because you're in a race doesn't mean everyone else knows about it or cares about it or should have to. A lot of river crossings at this section here. I probably crossed the river about 15, maybe 20 times. I'm not sure, but it just kept coming. This is also, in my opinion, one of the easiest places to mess up the navigation. All these water crossings. Sometimes there's trail running on both sides of them. Sometimes there's not really a trail at all, it's just rocks. So this is where I really took advantage of following Brian. He knew what he was doing, and this would have cost me minutes. Absolutely would have cost me minutes. Has different sections, just double checking, going down on the wrong side for a little bit, having to double back. So super grateful there. These river crossings, a lot of them you had to get off at. Just no option to ride through. At first I was trying to keep my feet dry, stand on rocks. Brian's just hammering. He just never got off the gas all day. It's awesome to ride with someone like that. But yeah, trying to run along these rocks in hard mountain bike shoes, not much fun at all. But the water splashing up on your legs, that was kind of nice. This whole section was shaded, and this really helped out because the day was getting warm. There's these two little climbs in this section where you pop out from the shade and the water, and it's like a totally different landscape. It's really quite surreal for me because I'd never done this section, and I was like, wow, now we're suddenly back in what looks like the earlier part of the race, and we've just been crossing rivers, and it was nice and lush. And then you get a pretty sick descent going back down into the more pedestrianized sections, the lusher sections. This was the first of the two climbs. Yeah, it was just a total change from what we've just been doing. The descent was pretty cool too. Really soft and loose in some sections. A lot of exposure too. I was really surprised.
Sketchy. Oh my god, so loose. Holy shit. Yeah, this is definitely the loosest part of the trail so far. Oh, clip that wall.
Oh my god.
Just the tip. Whoa, this is a crazy race. Whoa.
Oh my god. That's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's hard to be in the right gear for that. Oh. It's like you go down and you just hit a wall. To the face.
So after that pretty long single track descent, we're back down in the base here in the wash. And after, of course, we did a few more river crossings. So many. Yeah, this section, I didn't film the worst of it, but this was another least favorite section of mine. It kind of just opened up into this big wash. It wasn't really a clear path. A lot of big rocks the size of skulls. Super tricky going. A lot of power used to go pretty slowly. It didn't last too long though. And then what really surprised me was a quick short climb into one of the gnarliest ascents of the day. And I thought we were pretty much done with any of the steep descending because we're down in the wash just a few moments ago. And it kind of seemed like everything was flattening out and we're getting closer to town. But yeah, this descent took me by surprise. Only two hikers on it. And yeah, just everyone was kind of in the greener sections along the river. We didn't really pop up over these two climbs and descents we did. But it was really technical, super tight hairpins, and I was just surprised again that we were even doing this after being so far into the race. We're about halfway on the course at this point, but it was all gonna get more urban and a bit easier in terms of technical riding. It's gonna be more road and fire roads. So this was really the last gnarly section.
Super careful on the thing.
Slippery.
Yeah, it's like death.
Thanks, guys. Whew.
Yeah, that thing's like ice, dude.
Okay.
You just whack.
This is why I'm happy I'm behind you.
Every summer it turns green.
Shit.
Yeah, so after that super steep descent, we got, of course, another river crossing. I would have just plowed straight across here, looked pretty simple to me. But we had the trail sage, Brian. He knew all too well that that was the death trap. So yeah, just a lot of times I'm going to say this, but he really helped by knowing what he was doing, where he was going. This section here, this was the only minor error where Brian was like, actually, I think we have to pop back there. So yeah, like literally, that was our biggest slowdown of the day, which was nothing. He knew right away we need to jump across. This is somewhere it would have taken me a long time to make sure where I was going. You can see also there's these old kind of ruins, foundations. This is all part of LA history back in, I think, the 20s, 30s, when hiking started to become a big thing, outdoor recreation. There was a lot of places you could come stay. There were, little stone houses and what they called recreation areas for people to come to. They've all since been demolished and taken out because you can't really keep them running with flooding, fires, and keeping people safe. So they're no longer there, but there's a really interesting history if you want to look into it on the Gabrielino Trail and Spitzer Falls specifically.
Ah, God damn it. Burn another match.
I think this is really cool to show just how varied the terrain is. We started off on that pretty rocky but loose stuff. We've done some road. We've done some really steep technical stuff, switchbacks. Now we're just riding on, pure rock, river rock. Yeah, so all day you're just changing conditions. It's pretty fun. And it was also a good challenge,
Guys.
All right, so we are finally out of the Gabrielino Trail, out of what I would call the wilderness section of this race. And we're at the JPL, which is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Altadena. Following Brian, he knows his way very well. He lives around here, I'm pretty sure. I thought we were going straight there, so yeah, no idea where we're going here. Never ridden this either. And I can tell Brian's ridden this trail probably 1,000 times. He was cooking on this. Fun section just through the wash here, getting into the neighborhoods. You can see he's riding with a little bit of flair. I'll pop it up too and almost come down on that rock. So yeah, you can have fun, but if you don't know the trail, you might end up cracking a rim. So you've got to keep that in mind. Hard to contain yourself when the rider in front of you is having so much fun at the same time, though. At this stage, we're 45 kilometers down, 30k to go. But like I said, all the technical and riding that will beat your body up from impact is gone. But now we do have most of the climbing to come. We got right across that wash, and we're into Flint Canyon Trail and into the neighborhoods. This is another cool part of being in LA, these little sections like this, you know. There's neighborhoods all around, and you can head up into the Angeles National Forest, into the proper wilderness, but also if you're just gonna go for a walk, you can pop on these little sections where it feels like you're a million miles away from the city, but you're just in between neighborhoods. So cool to see that little section. And we're onto the road here for the first time in a few hours. Probably about 10 miles of road all day.
Whew. Now we gotta do all the climbing.
Yep.
I'm pretty cooked. How's that last climb? Steep?
No, I mean, it's solid.
So there's another opportunity here to kind of figure out what's coming up. I asked Brian about the climbs that are coming because I haven't done either.
Yeah. It's got a steep start.
Just kind of trying to do the math, trying to do the nutrition, the fueling, what do I have to do, what's coming up, how hard is it going to be. I'm just keep sipping on that nutrition in my bottles that I refilled at the second aid station. Didn't film that one because by that stage the brain was kind of going, and we've been racing for about 3 hours. He lets me know the climbs aren't too bad. Cherry Canyon's only about 2 kilometers at 9%. So I decided to hold off and take my last gel before the second climb, or the final climb, which is going to be a lot longer. This is Cherry Canyon, and there's also a little bit more climbing before going through the neighborhood, so longer than 2K, but nothing too hard. But we were really starting to feel the heat here. I can see I pulled my sleeves up, my arms are wet. It's not the hardest day, but it's humid too. Got this weird cloud cover that's just making it feel more humid. We did about 300 watts up that climb, about 1,000 VAM, which is pretty decent for, you know, hour 3 of the race on mountain bikes. And yeah, cooking down these fire roads. Brian's got some top times on all these descents, so he knows them really well. There's a little bit of a false descent there. It was fast and fun, but there's another section here to climb before we hit the real descent. There's actually 2 more. This section and 1 more. They were short little climbs. You don't really know, you don't really see on the computer that well, these little dingers that hit you. So Brian's really pushing hard here when he sees this racer, and that's exactly what I would have done too, because I know we're going to be coming onto another descent that has single track, and you don't want to be stuck behind somebody. You could see that bike there. He was running more of an enduro setup, not full enduro setup, but he had a pike fork on the front there, so that's about 140 mil travel if I'm not wrong. And you know, he had the long pants, long sleeves, so he must have been suffering even more than us in the heat.
2 riders coming up. 2 riders coming up. Around this corner.
So we turn off here onto this single track, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I actually do know this section. I've done this with Andrew Jackson on gravel bikes. He took me out here after our Verdugo's film. So I'll link that up there, but yeah, that was fun to actually realize, hey, I've done this section before, so I kind of knew what was coming. Obviously, a couple years ago, I've only done it once, but you still know what, you know, there's no drops, there's no jumps, blah, blah, blah. There's also a big worry, and that's what Brian was worried about. I think he said it to me during this upper section, like we've got to watch out for pedestrians. Somehow we didn't get very many people. I think these were the only 2 people we saw on the trail, so
Appreciate
that
it,
worked
guys.
out well for us.
Thank you.
And Brian had his bell going, but the trail was so smooth, you could barely hear the bell at times. We're just taking it easy around the corners. And yeah, Brian, I think, is second fastest all time down this trail. We didn't do too badly on this run. I think we were 30 seconds off the top 10. I just keep mentioning stuff like that to let you know that, yeah, there was at no point at this race where we were just like, we'll just freewheel, we'll just cruise this section. We were on the gas all day on the tools. A lot of fun. But yeah, it's much easier to ride that way if you have someone else with you, pushing you, motivating you. Just a really, really cool trail, you know, one of those special highlight trails where you get these killer views. You see the Glendale Sports Complex below you, and you see the Verdugos, you see some of the neighborhood. Just really awesome little bit of LA, so I'll let this one run for a little bit.
Thanks, guys. See you.
Thank you.
Yeah, buddy, that was sweet.
Pretty fun, right?
Very smooth
Just
trail.
waiting to hit someone though around every turn. You're just like,
Yeah.
hello. You can't stop right now.
It's so slick.
Yeah.
So yeah, you pop out at the GSC, Glendale Sports Complex, and we're back into the neighborhoods here. A couple of K on tar. I'm trying to have some fun, but my manuals were not working today. Now I'm always doing math, guys. That's one of my favorite things to do on the bike when I'm doing big rides. So I calculated that I wanted to hit this gel in this neighborhood, so it started kicking in on the climb and get me all the way to the finish. I'm also estimating how long it's going to take for us to actually get to the finish, and I'm like, I think we're going to do this in around 4 hours. And I know last year's when I did it in 4.5. So I kept telling Brian, like, hey, I think we're having a pretty good race here, man. Like, he's convinced that this younger guy that started in the group before us, the under 23 racer that got 11th at the Unbound 100, he's like, yeah, this guy is probably like 40 minutes ahead of us at this stage. And I'm like, yeah, he's probably gonna smoke us, but I kind of think we're having a good race, man. We're faster than last year's window, significantly faster. So let's keep pushing. So yeah, you can see me here taking the gel. This is the perfect time. You know, you gotta also plan these things because you can't be taking a gel on a lot of the dirt. So yeah, we hit the Verdugos, which is a small mountain range in Los Angeles, in Burbank, known for being pretty steep. This is the Beaudry motorway climb, I think it's called, Beaudry. So this climb was 5.5K, average 9%. Took us 30 minutes. Power went down on this one, it was only 265 watts, VAM 900. Super hot, guys. We were grinding this one out. We were tired. I wasn't sure how this race was going to end. I don't think Brian was either, how we were going to play it out. I kind of had it in my mind, we might just ride to the finish together. Almost thought of jumping in front of him right at the top before the final descent and trying to put like time gap on him in the final descent, but I was like, man, I want to film him on all these descents. This is the final descent, this will be cool. And my battery died right as we crested. I had a spare, but I left it in the car. So I'll have to tell you how the race played out. Follow Brian down the descent. At the bottom of the descent, it's kind of downhill tarmac and flat tarmac through a lot of intersections in the city in Burbank. And I had told him earlier, like, hey, I've been a messenger for 16 years, so he knew that I wasn't messing around in traffic. He wasn't messing around either. He's like, hey, we're gonna have to zigzag through these intersections. And I was like, yeah, no, we're gonna zigzag for sure. The first big intersection where we had to cut through some cars, I just saw a gap, instinctively took it. It wasn't anything crazy to me, but wasn't something that Brian was gonna do. Not something most people are gonna do unless you got a lot of messenger experience. And yeah, that way I got through that intersection, I had a gap, and I went, well, I got about 3-4K to the finish here. I'm just gunning it. Managed to hold him off. I got a cramp like a mile ago. I had to dial it back a little bit, but I had a big enough gap so I could just tone it down a little bit. Yeah, I came into the shop first overall. Brian came in second. Yeah, awesome day on the bike. I have to definitely give major props to Brian for keeping that race going strong all day, helping with the navigation. I felt kind of like a bit of a dick passing him at the end, but it is racing and we hadn't come to any gentleman's agreement or anything like that. And yeah, just fun day out. Everyone at the finish line was a lot of fun to chat to. No one took it too seriously. We all got to sit down, trade war stories, eat burgers, have some beers, and no one really cared that much about the results. And I can recommend doing one of those anytime, guys. The LA Tourist Race, check them out.